Hello, everyone. I don't know what the Pocahontas wave is about, but we'll pretend that didn't happen. As you're rewinding right now to watch it again and laugh at me. I know how you people are. Evil. I'm just kidding. I apologize for last week. No one posting. I knew ahead of time that people weren't going to be posting, so we haven't abandoned the channel. We're all still here, except for one person, but I'm not going to announce that we're doing auditions or anything yet, because I think the lineup is going to change a little bit, but the same people minus one. And next week we're going to start back on our challenges and things like that and be the wonderful Fab Fan channel that you all have subscribed to and love and watch. And, of course, we appreciate all of you watching and loving and commenting and everything else on the channel. So there you go. There's a little shout out to you guys for sticking around, even though sometimes I'm a horrible mod and I don't set up alternates to do videos or announce that we're having a little hiatus or anything of that nature. So I apologize for that. But next week we should be back on track and we'll be doing challenges and stuff like that, which will be awesome. I'm sure you guys missed that. Today's video I'm going to do a review of one of my absolute favorite Beatles films. And I say that about every film, I know, but I really like this one. And it's a fictional account of the Beatles' first trip to Hamburg. But what you have to understand about this film is that it doesn't necessarily focus on the Beatles. The Beatles are in the film, but they're kind of background noise to the real story that the film is trying to portray. And the real story is about Stu Sutcliffe, the original bass player for the Beatles. The film itself, if you haven't guessed already, is called Backbeat. I apologize for it being backwards because I'm on my webcam. But I really liked this film. Most Beatles fans complain about this film, but I don't think they understand that the whole purpose of the film is to tell Stu's story. And not really Stu's story from birth, just Stu's trip to Hamburg, where he met Astrid, and his whole growth and development over being a Beatle for the short time that he was a Beatle, and the direction his art was going, and the direction his life was going, because he'd met this wonderful photographer, Astrid Kircher, while he was in Hamburg, and that was kind of pulling him away from his art school, and away from his home, and away from his friends, and away from the band, but it wasn't a bad thing. I think it was a great thing. I think Astrid and Stu were wonderful together, and I like this film for telling that story, because it's not a well-known or a frequently told story of Stu Sutcliffe. Most people, even Beatles fans, don't even know who he was. Stu played bass for the Beatles, and he wasn't even a good bass player. Actually, he barely even knew how to play the bass at all, but John, being John, talked him into joining the band because him and Stu were really, really good mates from the art college they attended in Liverpool. And when they were going to Hamburg, John kind of bent Stu's arm and was like, "You're coming to Hamburg." And so Stu accompanied them, and the lineup at that time was Paul McCartney, George Harrison, John Lennon on guitar, Stu Sutcliffe on bass, and Pete Best on drums. And they all went to Hamburg as the Beatles? Were they the Beatles then? I'm not sure. I think in the film they were the Beatles. That could be one of the inaccuracies that the film has, because apparently there's a bunch, but I don't know them because I'm not this crazy accurate Beatles historian, but I try my best. If there are historical inaccuracies in the film, they don't pull me out of the plot at all. I'm right there with the Beatles in Hamburg and Stu and Astrid the whole time I'm watching the film. And I liked the film. I really did. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it if you want to learn a little bit more about Stu and Astrid and their whole story, as opposed to what the Beatles did in Hamburg, how they got to Hamburg, what they did in Hamburg, what happened after Hamburg. If you want to know all of that, you don't want to watch this film, because it's not really about that. The film is more about Stu, Astrid, and John, their whole little triangle going on, and the Klaus, Astrid, Stu triangle that was going on, Klaus Vormann. And that's really what the film's about. It's not really about the Beatles. I loved it. It's rated, should be rated R. If It's not. Yeah, it is. It's rated R. There's a little bit of language and there's a lot of nudity. But hey, nudity in a Beatles film is good. No, there's not nudity of the men per se. Although there are some pretty raunchy sex scenes. And the Beatles, if you didn't know this, when they were in Hamburg, they would play the music, the backing music for strippers. What? Yeah, your little straight-edged, tie-wearing, suit-clad Beatles actually started out playing backing music for strippers in clubs on the Reeperbahn in Hamburg. And there are scenes where the girls are stripping and the Beatles are behind them playing music. So if you don't like nudity or sex or anything, you're not going to like this film. The good thing about this film, speaking of sex, is Stephen Dorff. Oh, he is such a beast. He plays Stu. Cheryl Lee plays Astrid. And Ian Hart, if you've seen The Hours and Times, he's in that film as John, and he also plays John in this film. The guy who plays Paul in this film, and this is going to sound so unprofessional, but I can't remember his name. He also played Paul in the made-for-TV movie, The Linda McCartney Story. So, two of the actors, the John and Paul, have had experience playing John and Paul in other films, and I think they do a great job in this film. One issue someone might have with this film is that it kind of portrays John and Stu as possibly being more than friends, at least from John's side. And I don't know why films are obsessed with showing John as being gay or bi-curious or bisexual. I don't know what the deal is with that. I personally believe he was bi-curious, but come on, if you've slept with that many women, I'd be tired of it too. I'd want something new. But that's a whole other story. But anyway, there's this, one of my favorite scenes I'm going to talk. God, this video is so long. I hate how I get to talking and then the video's like 20 minutes long and I'm like, God. But anyway, I'll mention my favorite scene in the film real quick. My favorite scene is between John and Astrid. And they're talking and Astrid's like, why are you always so angry? And John's like, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. And she's like, well, I think you're just jealous then. And John's like, yeah, right, I'm jealous of Stu. Whatever. And Astrid's like, no, you're jealous of me. And then Stu walks in the room and it's all tense. And then the police show up because they took George in because they found out he was underage and they had to send them all back to Liverpool. That's a whole other story. But my favorite scene is that little scene. Even though some people might not like that it shows, John and Stu tension, but I loved it. I love that scene. It's my favorite. But that's my review. Out of 5 stars, I would give it 5 stars. Have I ever given anything Beatles related less than 5 stars? I don't know. But I like this film a whole lot. I highly recommend it. It's still available on Amazon and stuff. I have this crazy collector's edition. I don't know what makes it so special, except that it's a box within a box. And it's really nice. This is cool. It's like the outline of Stu and Astrid, and then inside of it is that famous picture of the Beatles. That's obviously not the Beatles in that picture. Those are the actors in the film, but that's kind of clever. There's Stu and little Georgie in the background on the back. Here's the back of the box. Astrid, Stu, John, Stu. The back of this box. I liked the film. I liked it. I highly recommend it. So go see it, enjoy it, love it. I'm going to end this freaking video because it's way too effing long. Oh, no. That's it. That's the video. Bye.